Good Saturday morning, Wild fans. Today is Saturday, January 30th, and this is your Minnesota Wild warm-up for today. Tonight, the Wild will play the Colorado Avalanche. They'll actually play them over the next 6 days. They'll play them 4 times. So, the Wild actually come into tonight's game. They actually are tied in second place with the Colorado Avalanche. I believe they're only 1 point behind Las Vegas, who Las Vegas won't be playing the next couple games due to COVID protocol. So, with Colorado and Minnesota tied in points, these next 4 games are very crucial in that both teams are essentially going to be looking for every opportunity to win every single game they can. Ideally, you would like to win all 4 games, but realistically, for setting a goal, you want to be able to come out of this little mini-series with at least 3 wins. So, with the Wild playing 4 games against the Colorado Avalanche, we are going to see some playoff caliber hockey happening within these next 4 games. We're going to see the Wild being crashing the net a little bit more. We're going to see a lot more physical presence from both teams. And I think we're going to see some very high-scoring games and some games that have a ton of penalty minutes in it. So, let's get right into it, and let's talk a little bit about tonight's game. So, tonight's game, before we start, we have to kind of reference what happened the other night with Kevin Fiala. Now, the other night, the Wild ended up winning 5-3 against the LA Kings, but during the second period, Kevin Fiala actually checked Matt Roy into the boards, and Roy ended up going headfirst into the boards. Fiala felt incredibly bad about it, was apologizing to him on the ice, was apologizing to Anze Kopitar. Obviously did not mean to do that. He doesn't have a history of doing those type of things. Yesterday, he met with the Players Association, and basically they decided that a 3-game suspension, I believe it was a $7,000, it's probably more than that. Anyways, he was suspended for 3 games, so we won't see him play the next 3 games. So tonight, tomorrow, and then I believe they play, I think, Monday or Tuesday. They play next week also. So he will be out for 3 games. So, with him out, we actually see Brad Hunt making his way into the lineup tonight. Hunt's kind of been off and on with his play. It's nothing, it's not like he's being punished or anything by Dean Evason. It's just with the Wild's full roster. He's kind of that extra floater guy they're using right now. But we'll see him make his way into the lineup tonight. He probably won't be logging a bunch of ice time, but we will see him utilized on the power play and the penalty kill. He does a tremendous job at blocking shots. He's got a really strong slap shot. So we should see the Wild possibly utilize him in that situation. So, let's talk about the combinations for tonight, and then we'll talk about a little bit about the history and rivalry of Colorado. So, when we look at the line combinations for tonight, we see Zach Parise, Nick Bjugstad, and we also see Brad Hunt making his way into that first line where Fiala would be. I'm glad to see the Wild are going to continue to use, and I'm calling it the Jack line, the Thrill line, whatever you want to call them. If you guys have a nickname for this line, leave in the comments down below. I'd love to see some of the creativity and some of the nicknames come out of this. But the line I'm talking about is the Johansson, Eriksson Ek, and Kaprizov line. And this line was on fire last game. Each one of those players at least recorded 1 goal. Some of them had assists. Johansson, actually, I had put down that I would consider him the #1 star of the game. And the Wild are doing something different this year. They have what they call the hydration bucket that they're awarding to a player after the game. It's given by the other players. And he was actually awarded it last game. They can earn it either by goals, assists, just how they perform the game. It's kind of a team award that they're giving out. But he actually was the winner of the hydration bucket last game. So, not hats off, I guess you'd say. Hats on to Marcus Johansson for having an outstanding game. We'll continue to see that third line of Greenway, Sturm, and Foligno round out. And Greenway has been getting better and better every single game he plays. He's been using his big body, getting to the net, looking for those rebounds. I think we're finally starting to see Greenway transform into the player that we knew he could be, and he's doing phenomenal. And then rounding out that last line will be Victor Rask, Nick Bonino, and Ryan Hartman. Hopefully Rask can kind of get things going a little bit. To be honest with you, I haven't really been, I don't know. His play's just kind of been at an average level. He hasn't really done anything that's over the top phenomenal to me. Hopefully that changes this year, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see. Our defensive pairings tonight, we'll continue to see Ryan and Spurgeon together, Brodin and Dumba. And our last pairing for tonight will be Carson Soucy and Ian Cole. Sorry about that. My computer was kind of acting a little weird. Tonight's goaltenders, I'm going to get to that in just a minute, okay? So I'm going to get to that in just a minute. I want to talk a little bit about the rivalry, and then I'll come back to talk about the goaltenders. So let's talk about the rivalry between these two teams. Colorado and Minnesota have had a long, outstanding rivalry ever since 2003. Let's flash back in time a little bit. The year is 2003. Minnesota is playing in the playoffs, and they are playing phenomenal. The Wild actually find themselves down 3-1 to the Cup favorite and defending Stanley Cup champions, the Colorado Avalanche. They were the big favorite that year to win the Cup. So the Wild were actually down 3-1, and actually it was kind of looking like they were done. They didn't have a chance. It's hard to come back from 3 games down. However, they were managed to come back and tie the series up to force at Game 7 in Colorado. In Game 7, Minnesota, the hero, Andrew Brunette, actually managed to score an overtime goal in overtime and send the series to the next playoff round, where the Minnesota Wild actually played the Vancouver Canucks. Found themselves down 3-1 again, and one of the most hated players against Minnesota, Mr. Bertuzzi, Todd Bertuzzi, went on the record to state that Minnesota actually had no chance of winning, and they had no right to even be in the playoffs, and they were the worst team ever. Minnesota kind of made him eat his own words, and they came back and won that series 3-1. There's not very many teams in NHL history that have come back twice from being down 3-1 to win. They ended up losing the next series against the Anaheim Ducks, who went on to win the Cup that year. But because the Wild had this long comeback against the Colorado Avalanche, it's always been kind of a big rivalry. There's just been that heated bad blood there that the Wild are always looking for that physical game. So with it being such a big rivalry game, I think we're going to see big physical games coming up over the next 4 games. So we're probably going to be seeing some high penalty minute games. So that's kind of where this rivalry stems. I don't think it's going to be going away anytime soon, especially since we're in the same division. We're tied in points at second place. We're going to be battling basically to the end. The Wild are going to see them at least 4 times over the next 6 days. So this rivalry is not going to go away over those 4 days. So I believe we're going to see essentially playoff-style hockey coming up. So a little bit more about the history of them. Going back well to the 2000s, when you look at how the Wild have done against Colorado, they have played the Colorado Avalanche 106 times up until this date. Have won 53 games of that, lost 42, tied 3 back when ties were a thing, lost 8 in overtime, have scored 117 points against them. Their win percentage against them is .552. They have 278 goals they've scored against them. They have 291 goals that they've had scored against. So that rivalry is basically 50-50. The Wild are they've had tons of success. And if I can remember correctly, I think Colorado is one of those teams. It's Colorado and somebody else. If anybody knows, leave it in the comments below. But there's always one team where Minnesota always kind of has that, when they play them, it's a 1-goal game. Either they win by 1 or they lose by 1. I don't remember if that's Colorado or if it's one of the Canadian teams. But there's always been one of those teams where it's always just a 1-goal game. And I don't know why, but it's always kind of turned out that way. So, the Wild are coming into tonight off a 5-3 win. They're on a 1-game win streak. The Avs are coming off a 2-game win streak. So let's talk about the goalies for tonight. So Grubauer is playing for the Avalanche. He currently has a record of 5-2-0. He has a 186 goals against, 186 goals allowed, 928 goals against, and he currently has 2 shutouts. So the guy is doing really well. Now, here's where the Minnesota Wild can make a couple choices tonight. There have been some rumors that Cam Talbot, we will see him back in the lineup tonight. He was currently on short-term IR due to some type of lower body injury. We don't know if that's groin, knee, not quite sure. The Wild didn't really disclose that. They just said it was short-term. So we could see him back in the lineup tonight, depending on how morning skate went. If he's not ready after morning skate or whatever his injury is, if it's not healed 100%, we'll probably continue to see Kähkönen in that starting role. Kähkönen currently has a 3-2-0 record, a 241 goals against, and a 917 save percentage. So on record, it looks like Grubauer is a little bit better, but in reality, both these goalies are basically, they're dead even. Both of them are playing really well. Obviously, Kähkönen hasn't recorded any shutouts yet. That's only a matter of time. The Wild are still kind of getting used to their new defensive core with Ian Cole, but I think eventually we are going to see Kähkönen get that shutout. It's just a matter of when. So, let's talk a little bit about who's leading for both teams. Who's on fire? Who should we look out for tonight? First one that you should look out for the Minnesota Wild is Joel Eriksson Ek and Greenway. Those two guys have been just on fire lately. They've been playing really well. They've been playing smart hockey. Ek is currently leading the team in goals right now, and Kaprizov is right behind him. So those three players, I think, are going to be just really well tonight. When you look at the Avalanche, there are three guys that are consistent. Are Nathan McKinnon. He currently leads the Avs with 10 points. You have Cale Makar, who is behind him with 9 points, and Mikko Rantanen is currently leading their team with 6 goals. So those are the guys that the Wild really need to shut down tonight and make sure they don't get any chances. At the same time, the Avs are going to be doing the same thing with our guys. When you also look at tonight's game, other things to consider for tonight's game is the Wild only have 1 win from last time, so they're going to be hungry for another win. Yes, the Avs are coming off a 2-game win streak, but sometimes when we see those teams with 2 wins, we see them either start to get sloppy or they get a little overconfident. So we could see the Wild do really well. It just kind of depends on how that first 10 minutes of the game is going to go. So we'll see how it goes tonight. The Wild play tonight at 7 o'clock on Fox Sports North. If you get a chance to watch it, tune in. Before I go, there's 2 more things I want to mention, okay? First thing is I want to give a special happy birthday shout out to former Iowa Wild and Minnesota Wild player Jonathan Blum. I've got my Jonathan Blum autographed hat right here from when he played with the Wild. Blum was an amazing defenseman when he was here. Just with the system, he ended up signing somewhere else. He's playing over, I believe, in Sweden right now. So, Blum, if you're watching, I know I follow you on Twitter. I just want to say happy birthday. I hope you're having an amazing season. Hope the family's doing really well. And I just hope things are going really well for you. I also want to say I had a memory pop up on my Facebook account, and I wanted to share this real quick. It was one of the craziest hockey experiences I've ever seen. 5 years ago, my wife and I, we went to an Iowa Wild game, and they were playing the Charlotte Checkers, who are the North Carolina farm team. And one of the most crazy things I'd ever seen happen. So Iowa was doing really well in the game, and there was a play down behind the Charlotte zone. There was a check that happened. I believe Iowa checked one of their players into the boards, and there was basically a scrum that erupted. Their goalie, I think his name is, I'd have to look it up. It starts with an A. I can't ever pronounce it, so I'll try to do my best here. But anyways, he was very upset at the play, kind of went behind the net to try to get things started. So all 5 guys were fighting behind the net. The refs were focusing on those guys. Steve Michalik, who was the Iowa Wild goalie at that time, was playing in his first game, had just been brought on, and their goalie decided this is the opportunity. He skated down the ice towards Michalik, dropped the gloves, and Steve Michalik and their goalie both got in a goalie fight. I never seen that before. It was the craziest thing to see. Steve Michalik ended up winning that fight. Their goalie ended up having to go to the bench because he had actually left his crease and went across center ice to start a fight. Michalik got to stay in net. Iowa Wild went on to win that game. It was a crazy, crazy experience. And I'll actually put a video of that in the description of this one. And I thought I had a video of it, so I had to look it up. And the video actually comes from Zach Boychuk, who played for Charlotte at that time, and he actually posted it on his page. So if you get a chance, give Zach Boychuk a shout-out. But it was an amazing experience. I actually have Steve Michalik's stick from that game that's autographed. I'll show that to you guys sometime. But yeah, it was just the craziest thing ever. So I want to end by saying I hope you guys all have a really great Saturday. If you have to go outside and you're in Iowa or Minnesota, just watch the weather. It's kind of supposed to be a little sketchy today. So just be weather smart, be safe. And this is Tom saying, I hope you guys have a great Saturday, and go Wild.